All right, moving on, we're going to move on to step 5, and you can see what they want you to do is they want you to channel out a little trench, and that's going to be for the wires. You can see it's going to go right there. I think I'm going to follow the line. That would make it easy. And try to put it exactly where they have it in the instructions, because you got to be careful because it's not very thick and it wouldn't be hard to go right through, and that would just be a mess. So this section, locate the paired wire that was removed from the battery case. Cut 2 6.5-inch lengths of paired wire. Using a small diagonal cutter, separate the strands of both sections of wire. Completely remove the insulation and tightly twist the strands of each wire together to prevent fraying. Scribe or route 4 shallow channels to accommodate the wires as shown. Note, use the existing panel lines for best results. Open the slot located in front of the lower engineering hull for the assembled display base. Carefully work the 4 wires into the channels. Leave 1.5 inch of overhanging wire as shown. Note, liquid cement can be used to soften the plastic in the channels to help hold the wires in place. Use modeler's putty to cover the channels. When the putty has fully cured, carefully sand. Be sure not to remove remaining panel lines. Cement and lower engineering hull and the assembled display base together. Note, let the cement set up thoroughly before continuing. You can see the channels and the steps that they want you to take. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to get the wire. All right, so I got the wire. There we go. So we got 4 wires at a length of 6.5 feet. I'm sorry, 6.5 inches, not 6.5 feet. That would be a big model. That would be awesome. Would that be a 1/350 scale or 1/200 scale of the Enterprise D? Anyway, the way the instructions say, we're going to have about 1.5 inches in each direction. So they'll be channeled in just like that, and we're going to do 4 of those. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go right in between over here, panel lines on this one, and I'm going to go right over there. And I'll do that on both sides. And what I'm going to use my Dremel or rotary tool. see the starboard side, we got the channels in, and this is going to allow the wires to go in. Just like that. You can see the wires will be all set. They look like they could go in a bit more, but I don't want to go through because it's awful thin, and I just don't want to go through the hull or the nacelle pylon. So that's good. I'm happy with that for now. So let's go ahead. We'll do the port side now. Okay, see what I mean about how easy it is to go through the side? And make sure that that's not an issue. So, the trenches are dug. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to clean it up, put the Dremel tool away, and then we can move on. Alright, so you go ahead and use the hobby knife. And I'm going to clean it up a bit. And we'll use the putty, the hobby putty, to clear up and cover up some of the spots where we went through. All right, let's do a bit of sanding. Want to sand it to get it back down even. You don't want to sand off the all the detail. You can see we get the wires. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit off, about a little over 1/4 of an inch, maybe almost 1/2 an inch for each side. Okay, so we did it for all 4 wires. I got about 1/2 an inch of the wire stripped on the top and on the bottom. And now we can do a final cleanup. We can fit the wire in, and we're going to glue it. And what I'm going to use is the Plastruct bonding. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the glue into the channel. You can see it kind of go through the channel. And I want to make sure it gets in every crevice. Just like that. And the instructions call for, we're going to leave, let's see, 1.5 inches out of the top and out of the base. So, approximately 1.5 inches at each end. Just like that. All right, I'm going to put a bottle down just to weight it down to keep it in place. Just like that. And we're going to give that a little while to dry thoroughly. Then we'll do the other side. There. And when it's dry, you should see you got the wires that are going to be going to the nacelles, and you got the power source that's going to be in a secondary hull. And we'll let this set, and then we'll put in the plastic putty to completely fill it in. So let's do the same thing for the channels on this side. Okay, so they've had a chance to kind of set a bit with the plastruck bonding. And since wires are very, well, temperamental and they don't like to stay in place, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, I don't want any surprises down the road. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to super glue or crazy glue the wires into the hull, just so I know that they're not going anywhere. And then I'm going to let that set overnight, and then tomorrow we'll put the putty on. So let's go ahead and put the crazy glue on. See how it's kind of going through the channels. Okay, so you can see I got the crazy glue, the crazy glue, into all of the channels. And I just want to make sure that maybe a month, 2 months, a year down the road, that the putty doesn't crack open and have a wire pop out. Because this is good at covering up cracks and filling in cracks, but it's not strong at all. And it's water soluble, so you can see we have the wires in, and you look at the instructions. That's what it had said to do with the wires, the channels, and we'll be ready to move on once the crazy glue sets and it's going to be locked into place and won't be going anywhere. So we'll finish this up when this is dry. Okay, so it had a chance to dry, and it's good and solid, and it's glued into place. So what we're going to do now is we're going to fill in all these trenches, and we're going to use the perfect putty, perfect plastic putty. Get a little spatula. Okay, so I put a first coat on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to use a damp cloth, and I'll clear away the extra, and we'll see if we need an extra coat or not. I had a little spot that I went through, so let's take care of that first. See pretty much the gaps we filled. I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to put a tiny little coat back on top just to make sure that it doesn't show up when the paint's on. Yeah, I'm going to see how that holds up. And you can see the secondary hull is going to go on right there. What we got to do now is we have to cut the slot for the opening, and that's where the stand is going to come through. So right now, all we got left to do per the instructions is to cut the hole. Let me show you guys. It's going to be right there. So let's go ahead and cut that out. See, the hole is right there. And we don't want to cut it too much because we do want it to be a little bit snug. We can take our base and it's going to go right up into there. So we can open it up a little bit, but what I want to do first is I want to paint the hull and get everything all detailed. As you can see, according to the instructions, once the channels are made, wires are put in, putty is the putty is put in place to cover it, then it goes on a stand. And that's going to be done, and we're going to move on to step 6. But what I'm going to do is, instead of assembling the whole ship and then painting it, I'm going to paint it first. So let's go ahead, we're going to address painting the hull, the secondary hull, before gluing it to the base. And I want to show you guys, when it comes to paint of the Enterprise, I was looking at a bunch of different paints. I love the Rust-Oleum, but the Rust-Oleum didn't really have a color that I was looking for. It's that gray, that grayish with the hint of a duck egg blue, at least for me anyway. When I was looking on the internet, I was looking on Amazon, and I had seen this paint. It's a chalky paint, which means it's going to dry. It's going to be like a powder finish. So that means you have to put a sealer on. So that's no big deal if I can get the right color. I had seen this. It's called Chalky Chicks furniture paint. And the color that it is right now may not look like it, but I'm going to put a picture up of the color of the dried paint that they had done on a mason jar. And I think that it's the perfect color for the Enterprise, at least for me anyway. So this is Chalky Chicks furniture paint. Now I did ask them if this was going to be able to be used on plastic, and they said yes. But because it's chalky, it needs to be sealed. So what I'm going to do is, we're going to paint the bottom of the secondary hull. We'll paint that, we'll do that section later. But I'm going to do the bottom of the secondary hull, and then we're going to detail it and get everything ready. So when we mount it to the base, it's going to be completely finished. Okay, so I'm noticing that this paint is not, the paint gun does not like this paint. So let's see what I can do with the old-fashioned brush, because I was told that's the best way to apply the paint. Let's put a little bit on and see what we get. I'm liking that there are no brush marks, so that's good. You can see the first coat is all set. Now, I'm hoping because it's wet, it's dark, when it dries, when I show you the picture of what it looks like on the website dry, I hope there's not too much of a difference, because that's really why I like the color. But for now, we got to let this dry. So, can go ahead and clean the brush, and when this is dry, we're going to put another coat on. Okay, so it had a chance to dry, and honestly, I thought it would be a little bit lighter than this, according to the pictures, but maybe because this is plastic. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do this side, and when it's totally dry, we'll be ready to put another coat on. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this section, and I'll show you what that looks like when it's dry really well. And what we'll do is, if we need to sand any spots down, smooth it out. And when it's completely dry, we'll put another coat on. And when the second coat is on, we'll be all set to do some detail work and then mount it to the base. You can see the wet paint shows up the gaps or the channels where the wires were, but that's because it's wet. That's why it's sticking out like that. So we'll see what that looks like when it's dry. Okay, so it's had a chance to dry, and I'm glad there's no brush marks. This was the first coat. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the second coat on. And we'll see what it looks like after the second coat. So we'll let that dry, and we'll see if we possibly need a third coat. So I'm going to let this totally dry and cure overnight, and tomorrow I'm going to see if I need to sand it, put another coat, and we'll take it from there. Alright, so I had a chance to dry, and you can see. Now, when I read you the instructions said to completely strip off the casing and just have the wire go through. To be honest, I thought I could get away with it, but the wires show. You can see that the lines from the wires, but I'm going to have to live with that. It's not terrible, but maybe it's because I know it's there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start to detail the secondary hull. Now we got phaser arrays. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 5 on the bottom of the hull, and we have a bunch of the escape pods. You can see. Well, that's not an escape pod, but these are. You see, are there any in the aft end? No, but there are some over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the escape pod detailing. And if you know, the Enterprise, the escape pods are kind of like yellow. And I thought about this yellow, but this is way too bright. It's not like a canary yellow. What I was thinking more along the lines was this color is called plaid. And it's a subtle, you can see it's a subtle yellow, like a white yellow. And I think that's what I'm going to use. Actually, I'm going to try on one to see if it looks good. And then if it looks good, then, because I'm going by, let me show you guys what I'm going by. For the Eagle Moss Enterprise build, you can see the way the pods look. They're not really yellow. They're like tan, like a tannish. And then they have the square, and then they have the red line on the bottom. Now I'm not gonna do all that detail on all the pods, but I would like to acknowledge the pods on this ship. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try using the subtle yellow or the plaid color, and we'll see how that looks. Okay, so you can see it's real subtle. I don't want them to jump out like a canary yellow. And keep in mind I'm doing this freehand. So I think I'm going to live with that. So I'm going to do all the escape pods in that color, in the plaid. And you can see on the top of the container, I like that color. So there look to be quite a few. Well, not really that many. It looks like 12, maybe 18. We'll see. All right, anyway, I'm going to paint them all, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like. All right, so I don't see any more escape pods on the bottom of the ship. You can see, I like that color of the plaid. I think it's subtle and it looks pretty good. Keep in mind I did all these freehand. I know they're not perfect, but I did want the escape pods to show. So, well, we can move on to, we can do the phaser arrays. So let's look for that. All right, when it comes to the phaser array, you can see how it's really dark. It's almost like a black. And because the ship is so dark, I'm wondering if I should just go ahead and make it black, because if I put the gray on, the dark gray that I have, it's really not going to show up. It's going to just blend in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the acrylic black, and I'm going to paint the phaser arrays, and I'm just going to put them black. So I did all the phaser arrays on the bottom. Looking pretty decent. Again, keep in mind, please be kind. I did it all freehand, so you can see a nice flying over. Okay, so on the other side, we have phaser arrays here as well. So now I'm going to do that. I got to be careful so I don't touch the bottom. Okay, so you can see we got the phaser arrays in the back. So let's see. So let's go ahead and look at the instructions and see what other details we can put on before we put the decals on. You can see there are some decals that go on the bottom. You can see these two, and then the Delta insignia, and then more decals. So let's get the decal sheet. And you can see right here, Now these decals are from 1997, so these are pretty old. So I'm going to see if I can still use them. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut the pieces out, and I'll show you the pieces and what they look like. Alright, so you can see the decals on the bottom of the secondary hull. So you can see the really small decals on the sides of the phaser arrays. So let's flip her over and we'll do the decals on the top. So on the top of the section there's only two of the phaser arrays. And you can see the 1701. So let's go ahead. It's 41A and B and 42. So let's get going. Okay, so we got the stickers on, the decals are in place. And we got the bottom decals in place. We got the escape pods on. And we got the sides of the nacelle pylons. So what's left to do now is, if you can see the windows. Now, not every window in the ship is going to be lit up. And not every window is going to be blacked out. You can see on the box that there's actually windows that are supposed to be lit. But if you go by the instructions, the secondary hull doesn't have any windows on the bottom that are lit. See, let's go. Nope. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to black out all the windows. So all the windows that are blacked out, I'm going to black out. And all the windows that I drill are going to be the ones that are white or lit. So there's going to be a lot more blacked out windows on this model. But what I'm going to try to do is go in and black out all the windows, because there's quite a few windows on the bottom of the secondary hull. So let me try to go ahead and do that. So let's see if you guys can see all those windows. You know, when it comes to modeling, a lot of the things that starts to bring out a model are the details. And a little thing like putting the windows in is what I'm talking about. It's like some of the details that really start to pop the model or bring it to life. So I got all the windows on the belly section of the secondary hull. There are no windows in the aft end. Oh, the sticker is starting to come off. There are no windows in the aft end. And I don't see any windows on the top part. So there are no windows there. So I think we're all set now to go ahead, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a good coat of sealant, and we're going to seal it up. Actually, before I give it a coat of sealer, you can see that there's a part missing in the instructions to put on the bottom of the secondary hull. Here it is. You can see it's the main tractor beam emitter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that on right now, so you can see it's right in there. And on the model it has a black So let's see if I can, maybe I can use the Sharpie on it. Alright, so what I did was I put mine blue. I used the blue Sharpie because this is my own little tribute to my friend Joe, who passed last year. And he put his blue. We had a little debate about the tractor beam, and I thought it would have been silver, but he thought it was blue. So I put it blue in honor of him. So Joe, brother, this is for you, buddy. So that concludes the build part. So now, like I said, we're going to go ahead and we're going to seal it. Alright, so you can see it's all covered. It's all sealed. This is one coat. So let's go ahead and I'm going to let this dry. And then we're going to see if we need to put another coat on. Okay, so it had some time to dry. And you can see it's shiny. Now, I understand it's not supposed to be shiny, but this is the story with this. Because of the paint, it's the chalky paint, and I use the acrylic for the escape pods, and I use the acrylic for the phaser arrays. Well, the problem that I had, I do have the matte finish sealer, but it's the industrial. It's the Rust-Oleum. And when I spray, if I were to spray this, it would totally destroy all the paint because it's too strong. So instead, I have a bunch of the clear sealant, but the problem is it's glossy. So I know it's not supposed to be glossy, but this one is going to be glossy. You can see the windows, the escape pods, the transporter arrays, the phaser arrays. You can see the tractor beam and the phaser arrays in the aft end of the ship with the transporter arrays, the size of the nacelle pylons. Okay, so what we're ready to do now is we're finally able to move on with the instructions and actually put it onto the base. You can see it's going to go on just like that. So what I'd like to do is clean out the hole just a bit, just so we can get the stand part to go in. There, it's a little bit cleaner. And it's going to go right into the bottom. It's going to go right in like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to super glue, or crazy glue, excuse me, and I'm going to put it in. There. And we're gonna push it through. And we're gonna get it to stay just like that. And that, my friends, is the completion of step 5 in the build. So when we continue, we're going to move on to step 6. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again very, very soon.